Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Sea of Stars and... question mark.
I'm playing a little bit of everything this week, so who knows what we'll talk about.
A little combo plate.
Yeah, everybody likes a little sampler. I don't know where I'm going with this.
A poo-poo platter of video gaming, if you will.
Ooh. How do you know about a poo-poo platter?
How do I know about a poo-poo platter?
Yeah.
Is that a secret thing?
I was wondering. I didn't realize it was like a widespread thing.
Oh, yeah. No, growing up, there was the Chinese restaurant in my little hometown in Connecticut was called the Hookie Lao. It was a Polynesian Chinese restaurant, and the poo-poo platter was my favorite thing because it was all the appetizers.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say it's a Hawaiian thing. So it's like, it's very kind of unusual, I think, that people know that. But yeah, there used to be a Hookie Lao around here. I don't know if I ever went for the poo-poo platter.
But yeah, that was all the good stuff.
Yeah, all right. Well, great. We got a poo-poo platter full of quirky video games this week.
Well, good. Are you struggling to sort of figure out what you want to play post-Backlog-Attack?
It's a little bit of that. I was like, just easing my way back into civilian life after the Backlog-Attack ended. It was such a different sort of structure, just having a game scheduled every week. Because the rest of the year on here, I'm just like, oh, what am I going to play this week? What's going on? What games are out? What games do I like? Do I even like video games? Who knows? But it was so easy just having like, oh, this week it's Armored Core. Sure, this week it's Doom. Or not Doom. It's Wolfenstein or whatever. So I just felt sort of aimless last week. And also I was like getting over a cold for part of the week where I just didn't want to play anything. So that ate up some time. But now we're just back to normal, back to trying to figure out what video games to play.
Excellent. Yeah, and my dilemma is thoroughly overwhelmed by, as usual, all of the stuff, all of the options that we have. So.
Oh, you just have too many options?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Here's what I was thinking.
Sure.
I thought, I was, like I said last week, I was kind of interested in playing a Starfield until I remembered that I don't really have anything that can play Starfield. I'm not confident that my PC would run it, at least at a level that I'd be happy with. So,
which has the potential to be funny and kind of meme worthy, probably.
Yeah, but I've had such a bad history of trying to get Bethesda games to run, even when like the hardware is significantly overpowered. That I'm just like, let's not just tempt fate with this. So I don't know. But I thought maybe I'll play something. God, I keep wanting to call it Skyrim. I'll play something Starfield like. Maybe this is finally the time to get into No Man's Sky, or there was that game Everspace 2 that came out recently. I played the first one that I was kind of a fan of. Basically, you're just in a little spaceship and you fly around and do missions. So I thought about doing
that's
that.
What it says on the back of the box for Starfield. So
yeah, so I considered that, and I was looking at how long that was supposed to be, and it was like 40 hours long. And I thought, oh, that's a long game. So I immediately turned to my alternative list of non-Starfield games, which is stuff like Persona 3 and Xenoblade. And I was like, oh, this is so much better than that 40-hour spaceship game. I don't know what I was thinking getting into that. Now, I do really want to get back into Persona 3 at some point. But the thing is, I've spent so long away from it at this point that like every time I spend too long away to come back to it, I need to just spend a few days just mentally preparing myself and like reorienting myself to whatever was happening in the game at the time. And I just it was too much for me to deal with last week, so I ended up not doing that either.
Well, you better get on it. That remake comes out in February, so.
I don't think I'm going to play the remake. I think I'm just going to go through this version, and it'll be great, and I'll play the remake 20 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah.
By the time the next remake comes out.
This version of Persona 3 has been fine for everyone up to this point, so.
Yeah. I mean, the remake does look very flashy, but...
It does, yeah.
It's not to the point where I'm like, okay, so I just have to start everything over. What worries me about the remake is that I just feel like it's going to be so much of a slower experience compared to the PS2 version, which is the one I'm playing. You know what I mean? It's like whenever you're like, take Dragon Quest 1, which we talked about last week, and compare it to like Dragon Quest 11. Like, how long does a battle take in Dragon Quest 1 compared to Dragon Quest 11? It's like several orders of magnitude faster. And just like
in Dragon Quest 1.
In the original, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And just like in general, getting around and navigating anything in that game is so much faster than playing just a modern take on it. So I'm worried that Persona 3, like the remake, playing the equivalent amount of Persona 3 in the remake versus the original is going to be like a 200-hour experience. I'm probably like exaggerating it a little bit, but like not that much maybe.
Yeah. You're probably not wrong. It definitely seems like the Persona 3 remake has a Persona 5 coat of paint on it, which means, a lot more animation, a lot more open world stuff. There is a certain kind of efficiency to Persona 3, particularly if you play the portable version of it. It's probably not going to exist in the remake.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it'll go both ways. Like they'll make some sort of modern updates to speed things up. But I just expect, much flashier animations, just everything generally taking longer. I don't know why I'm talking about Persona 3. I didn't actually play Persona 3. But I'm always just kind of thinking about playing Persona 3. We'll see what happens when I one day I finally finish the game, if it will still just live in my head forever, or if I can free myself and maybe move on to Persona 4 or something.
Would you like to start another backlog attack? We could do that.
Like right now?
Just fire up another one. Just go.
Only Persona 3?
Just commit to playing 4 games over the next 4 weeks.
I think I've decided though. I think I've decided what I'm going to do, and what I'm planning to do is play Xenoblade finally.
Oh wow!
The first one, because I have it on the Switch, and again, just supposed to be a massive game, but I played like 5 minutes of it several years ago because I was going to set it up for like Extra Life or something. And even in that very brief period, I remember thinking like, oh man, this seems like something I could really get into. So I think I'm just going to like bite the bullet and do it. We're going to just play some Xenoblade, and that's going to be the next 4 weeks of the show. So we'll see.
Excellent. All right. Well, cool.
Cool.
I'll have to make sure I do some creative counter programming.
No, I have other stuff on the slate as well. I'm just like really want to make an effort to get into Xenoblade. I'll probably, continue to play Persona 3 in my other weird downtime, but who knows?
Or at least think about playing Persona 3.
Well, I'll definitely continue to do that, but I may actually play the game as well.
I was thinking this month, maybe the last couple of weeks, in light of the recent sad news about Volition, that maybe I would revisit some Volition games. Yeah. For our listeners who maybe haven't heard, it was announced last week that the Embracer Group is shutting down Volition games.
Creators of Red Faction and Saints Row.
Yeah. And in general,
did they do one other thing? Didn't they have like 3 series at one point?
Summoner?
So, okay, never mind. So there are 2 main things over Red Faction and Saints Row.
Yeah, I never played the Summoner games. I know very little about them, but yeah, that was one of their kind of the early things. I think they made a couple of those. In general, for ill or for will, I've enjoyed most Volition games that I've played. And we've talked quite a bit on the show about how Red Faction Guerrilla in particular was pivotal in getting DJ and I to play video games together once upon a time.
I think it was probably during a session of that game where we conceived the idea for the show.
Yeah, I think that's distinctly possible. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not formative, but that game is very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Which Volition games were you thinking of playing?
I don't know. I mean, I've not. I played a chunk of the new Saints Row, which kind of landed with a thud when it came out last fall. But they never really talked about it on the show, so maybe that's the place to start. But I don't know. A little sampler platter, a little poo-poo platter, if you will, of Volition games, perhaps over the next couple of weeks.
That's all that's left at this point.
Yeah, because there will not be any new ones. So yeah,
that's
maybe revisit some old ones. It is a bummer. I mean, they may have lost their way a little bit maybe over the last couple of years, but I mean, they've been around for 30 years, and there's definitely some quality there. So it is a little sad that they finally reached a point where their corporate overlords are shutting them down.
Yeah. I wonder. Like, I haven't really kept up with sort of the personalities at the studio because it's been quite a while since Red Faction Guerrilla. Yeah. So I wonder if how much of that team is still actually at Volition or was at Volition when they shut it down, or if they've moved on to other things and other projects that I may have heard of.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a sense of that, certainly on the creative side. Yeah, I mean, once upon a time, I got to go to the Volition office and meet some people and see a video game being made, and that was cool. And the community guy who set that up, shortly after that experience, left Volition to go off and do other cool stuff in the video gaming industry. So the one connection I had to that studio that was a human being has not been there for quite a long time. So I don't have any idea behind the scenes who's still making games there.
Yeah. Yeah, they always I don't know if they made, the greatest games to exist, but they always seem to have a lot of heart in it. So sad to see them sort of close down.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you ever play the original Red Faction?
I think briefly.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the things that I thought maybe would be worth revisiting, because that is kind of available on modern consoles. It's quite different from Guerrilla and the games that came after it. So, and it's first person, which is an interesting perspective too. So that might be a fun thing to check out, at least for a little while.
Yeah, I remember playing. It was probably during the height of my Red Faction Guerrilla fandom. I tried to go back and play the first Red Faction, and yeah, it was very different. And I don't know if I stuck with it for very long. It was kind of it was more of a generic first-person shooter compared to the experience in Guerrilla. But they were definitely doing some interesting things, you could shoot holes in walls. That was the big hook. I wonder if it'd be interesting going back and taking another look at this point.
So that's kind of what I was thinking too. I think those guys maybe deserve a little bit of love, and if I can put some into the podcast over the next couple of weeks, maybe that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
So yeah, 30 years. 30 years is a long time to do anything, let alone be a video game developer. So
they hung in there.
Yeah. It's real sad to go to their website right now, because there's a whole splash page for hey, Volition celebrating their 30th anniversary. And the top of the landing page is the note saying, "Oh, by the way, we're shutting everything down." Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah. It's a bummer. So kudos to the folks at Volition. Hopefully they all land on their feet. It does say on LinkedIn, of all places, that they're working very hard to find new homes for all the people that kind of made up the Volition team. So hopefully that comes to fruition for some of those folks.
What if I track down whoever designed the multiplayer mode for Red Faction Guerrilla and find out what they're working on? Maybe that would be good. What happened to those guys?
Let's interview them. Let's get them on the show.
Yeah.
So this is also a rumor right now. Embracer Man is just going crazy with with their little corporate restructuring, because there is a rumor circulating today, Monday, the day that we're recording this episode, that they might be selling off Borderlands developer Gearbox as well.
Whatever.
Well, arguably a much more successful developer than Volition ever was.
Sure, but
yeah. And there's a Borderlands movie coming out in the next year. So we'll see where the story goes. Obviously, it's a little bit of a rumor around the internet right now. By the time this episode comes out, there might be some more truth to that. But yeah. And notable that they're trying to sell it rather than shut it down.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that's come to light about personalities at Gearbox over the last few years that I'm just like, I'm not really a fan of those guys anymore. And also just, Embracer Group in general, not a great company. So I could care less about, I couldn't care less about whatever Embracer Group decides to do with this other company that I don't like.
No, I know, but there's human beings there. There's people who have jobs who, are arguably not terrible people like Randy Pitchford. Show up every day and hopefully continue to get paid for putting out good work. But, I don't know. These things happen.
It's unfortunate. But
yeah. I've worked for companies that have kind of reconsolidated and sort of reset themselves, and it's always a little bit terrifying, and hopefully people land on their feet. But in this situation, I'm just glad that they had the foresight to sell off Tomb Raider.
Oh, did they? What? Wait, who wasn't that? Square Enix, or did Embracer Group pick that up?
Yes, I think there was something in there. I think Square Enix sold it. The Embracer Group picked it up, and now Amazon owns it.
Oh, weird.
So it has changed hands a few times.
Yeah, speaking of companies that I'm just in love with.
A necessary evil in many of our lives, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of necessary evils, I canceled my PlayStation Plus this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Because of all this hubbub. So they're just like jacking up the price on everything, which I think is like not an especially good service to begin with. And now it's just exorbitantly expensive. So I canceled that and put the $140 into just buying the complete series of Star Trek: The Next Generation on Amazon. And I was like, okay, it's about time. It's been meaning to do this for a while, so I was enjoying that. But I was kind of dismayed about this whole PS Plus thing. I started on
the pricing, you mean specifically?
The price, and just PS Plus in general as a thing that exists. Not a fan at this point. When I got my PlayStation 5, I decided I would just go all out with the top tier of whatever it's called of PlayStation Plus. I just thought, well, this is the year I just go all in on PlayStation. Let's see what they got going on, because like a lot of the stuff on there is actually kind of compelling. They have they're trying to do their own sort of Game Pass thing. They have access to like PS2 and PS3 streaming stuff, which I've used in the past and actually I thought was pretty good. But over the last few years, I just found that I don't really make use of a lot of the stuff they offer with PS Plus, like the free game catalog, and I don't even do a lot of online play anymore. So I just thought, okay, I'll try this out for 1 year. It'll be a great experiment. And a year later, we'll see where we're at and see if I'm getting any value out of it. And it turns out like 3/4 through the year, they just decide, okay, so everybody's going to start paying a lot more for this with no real justification why. We just decided we want more money out of you guys. And I like looking back on what I've gotten out of it so far is I've really just played Asura's Wrath on streaming, which I still have to talk about. I'll talk about that next week. How about? And like part of me thinks like, so first of all, like Asura's Wrath is like really amazing. And I want to say like, if it's the only thing that I got out of PS Plus this year, then it was worth it. But no, it absolutely is not worth, $140 a year.
Right, exactly.
So, man, I don't know what's going on with Sony. I feel like the whole PS Plus restructuring, sort of like the PlayStation Portal from last week, is just, it was their attempt at competing with Game Pass, because that is like an incredible offering. And Sony was like, okay, well, I guess we can't do that exact thing because that would like put us out of business or something. So we'll just put out something that looks vaguely similar and hope people buy it. That's really I just feel like that's their MO for everything at this point.
Yeah, I think they're in a weird place. I don't think they've necessarily sort of defined their value proposition, and the fact that they're kind of winning the console war is a little problematic, because it means they don't really have to try that hard. I miss the Sony of the PS3 era where they were just losing constantly and trying to sort of roll out anything to be interesting or relevant in some way.
Yeah, well, that was when PS Plus started, and it was incredible. Because they would come out with like all the free games at the start, and people were like, "Really? Like, oh yeah, no, just take them."
Yeah,
and it felt like it just kept getting better and better, and ever since the PS4 sort of wiped the floor with Microsoft, I feel like they've been tightening things up a little bit,
resting on their laurels.
Yeah. So I don't know what to think. I think I'm going to stick with my thing. Only the even-numbered PlayStations are good. PlayStation 1 being the exception. So PlayStation 6 should be great. I'm really looking forward to their return to form.
I have until February before my PlayStation Plus account sort of I guess ages out, and they charge me $140 to renew it.
That's so much.
It's ridiculous. It is insane. Considering the service used to cost $50, and it was awesome when it was $50.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not that long ago. And quite frequently, you could get a card for like $35.
Yeah.
To renew it. And it has gone up 300%, and I don't quite understand why. Yeah. I mean, I've played, I don't know if I'm necessarily getting my money out of it, but I've gotten some money out of it. Stray was one of those games. What's the other one that I played recently? Tchia. Those are the only ones I can think of. Oh, Miles Morales. I played that recently. That was one of the PlayStation Plus games. So, there's stuff in there, but I don't need to play all of the God of War games or all of the Uncharted games again. As much as I enjoy those experiences, I have them. I own them on discs. I can play whenever I want.
I was going to say, I'd be surprised you didn't have all those already.
Yeah. So yeah, I probably don't need the tier that I'm at. I'm not getting $140 worth of enjoyment out of this thing.
Right. I think the thing that upsets me the most about it is when I realize that if you don't have PS Plus, you don't even have cloud saves anymore. So forget about online play. Like, you can't even back up your games anymore, which I thought just feels like table stakes at this point. And I thought, well, I kind of like cloud saves. How much would it cost me just for the basic plan? And it's still like $80. But also just imagine, remember how livid people were when Xbox decided, to play online is going to be $50 a year. And now it's just Sony casually bumping it up to almost $100.
Right.
It seems outlandish.
What do you need cloud saves for? When there was a Vita and a PS3 and a PS4 they were supporting, I could sort of see the value in that because there was some cross-save functionality occasionally.
That's true. That's true. Maybe I'm overblowing the cloud save thing.
Yeah.
But
shut off a game on your PS3, continue playing it on your Vita. But it doesn't, I don't know. I don't have 4 PS5s in my house that I need to kind of bounce around. Let me put it up to the cloud so I can go finish this in the bedroom.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Maybe I should rethink my stance on cloud saves. Yeah. But when I transferred everything over to my PS5 from my PS4, was that not online? My PS3 just straight up stopped working at some point. And I was not able to... Actually, I forget if I was able to get the stuff off the hard drive, but there have been a few occasions where I was very happy to have those save files.
Yeah, I suppose that's... Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the transition from the 4 to the 5. I forget how it handled all of that stuff. If it was sort of a direct port or if it just downloaded everything off the cloud. Yeah, I don't know. If I made a giant list of all the services,
I don't know what I'm talking about. So,
I made a giant list of all the services I pay monthly fees for, between streaming and gaming, I would probably be very disappointed in myself. So, something's got to give.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this was kind of like my last year seeing if I was really getting enough value out of PS Plus, and the answer is probably not, even before they raised the price. So that just made the decision even easier. And now I've got 7 years of Star Trek to watch, so it's all good.
Excellent. Did you buy that on the PlayStation Store?
No, I just did it on my computer. Do they still sell movies on the PS Store?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, wow. I guess they must, because, Sony. I think I've maybe watched one movie ever on PlayStation that I actually bought from the store. And it was fine, but I completely forgot that was even an option.
Yeah. There's probably some other service I pay a small fortune for that can serve that up for me.
Been subscribed to PlayStation's movie service for 10 years.
Yeah. That's, I don't know how to transition out of this. I feel like we've gotten very negative, but.
What's good? I've been playing a bunch of other little tiny things.
Oh, nice.
Like I was saying, I haven't really spent a lot of time playing just a lot of time with one thing. I've been trying to find the next thing to play, and it's come down to basically a lot of Super Nintendo games. So I played a little bit of Soul Blazer because people were talking about that in the Discord over the last few weeks as part of the Backlog-Attack. That game's still really fun. What I probably spent the most time with, though, is I've been playing Breath of Fire 1 on the Nintendo, the Switch Super Nintendo app. Have you ever heard of this?
This is the Dragon movie with Christian Bale, right?
Oh, is it? Wait, what? No, what was that called? I mean, they're not related, but what was that movie called?
I thought it was called Breath of Fire.
Is it Breath of Fire? The one where he jumps into the dragon's mouth? I don't know. Hey, I know. I know what movie.
What's the Dragon movie with Christian Bale?
They can have that sidebar. So it was an RPG actually developed by Capcom and published by Squaresoft in the US, and it came out at just the perfect time because RPGs were kind of experiencing this renaissance in the West. You had was it Final Fantasy VI was out at that point? I forget when this originally came out, but they were just starting to become a thing on the Super Nintendo, and they put out this game that was I have fond memories of. I remember it being fairly generic, but it was kind of ooh, another RPG. I wonder what this one's like. So I was very surprised to see that it's even on the Nintendo Online thing, because it's kind of unusual. It's a lot of Nintendo games on there, and not a lot of Squaresoft games, and not a lot of Capcom games. So it's weird that there's they just landed on this one. Oh, let's put this on there. In fact, Breath of Fire 2 is on there as well. It's very weird. But I was struggling to remember as I was getting back into this, what was even sort of the hook about this game? And at this point, I still am struggling to come up with something. I feel like the cast is really interesting. A lot of the cast are not human. They're these weird sort of not really anthropomorphized, but there's a big sort of wolf man who joins you, and there's the bird girl and fish guy. It just sounds ridiculous going this thing. I think one of the characters in Breath of Fire 2 was a walking plant, which was kind of cool. But just a weird cast of characters, and they all have their own little abilities they can do. The Wolfman, or is he a fox? I don't know. He can hunt wildlife on the overworld, which was kind of unusual. It was not really done in any other games at that point. But they just had all these clever ways of putting a spin on what otherwise is a pretty sort of cookie cutter sort of JRPG.
Now I'm looking at this now, and I have never seen or heard of this.
Yeah, I feel like unless you were playing a lot of RPGs back in that era, it's gone mostly overlooked. They made a lot of sequels in this series, but they have also largely flown under the radar, I think. And I don't think the last one, I think it was like a mobile game, did not do very well, just because people were very upset that it was a mobile game. But it's been fun to come back to this, especially just having gone through Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and sort of seeing where these series got their starts. Man, it's so grindy though. I mean, it's like maybe even grindier than Dragon Quest 1. Although we did, like, the most recent version we talked about, that Switch port was updated to be less grindy than it originally was.
Yes, I've read that, yeah.
But this one, and I was just like, oh man, I can't even go into basically the first dungeon yet. I just need to sort of walk loops around the first town and grind out some gold so I can upgrade my equipment so I'm just not getting slaughtered right away. But it's been a very... It's been kind of a nice, like, side thing as I mentally prepare myself to get into Xenoblade.
Cool. Yeah, the Christian Bale dragon movie is called Reign of Fire.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. What is it? Christian Bale who jumps into the dragon's mouth, or is that Matthew McConaughey?
I don't know. I don't remember that part.
Oh, okay. I didn't actually see that. I just remember the commercials looking silly.
Know that part, yeah.
Yeah. For a split second, I thought, I was like, was that a Breath of Fire tie-in? Because that would just be unbelievable. But, like, given Capcom's track record of movies, it's not completely out of the question that would have been what the movie version ended up being.
So Breath of Fire is not a dragon thing.
Oh, it is a dragon thing.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no, it's very dragony. I mean, it's not like dragons all over the place. Like, I can still get through it. It doesn't bother me that much. Basically, like, I don't know how much of this I remember accurately, but the main character is a descendant of, like, the Light Dragon tribe, and then there's, like, this evil empire that's trying to take over the world. Just, classic 90s JRPG stuff. And they are, like, descendants of the Dark Dragon tribe, so it just feels like, oh, okay, of course. And then, at some point, all the clan members turn into dragons, and they fight each other, and, it's all very exciting. But, yeah, it would be kind of confusing if it was called Breath of Fire and there were just never any dragons in it.
Yeah, someone would be very disappointed. I suspect we would have heard about it by now.
Yeah. Anyway, it was so funny to run into these on the Switch Online thing because I feel like they're largely forgotten, although so are a lot of the games on there. Like there's actually some pretty weird stuff on there. I sort of feel like I should be spending more time with that. In fact, I definitely feel like, I don't know, between Nintendo Online and PlayStation Plus, there's definitely weirder stuff going on just in these retro apps. So I'm kind of satisfied with just sticking with that for the time being. Cool.
Yeah. I am. I don't know. I generally scroll through those apps and I don't know what most of the games are, so it's hard to sort of know where to jump in. Yeah. And my sort of aversion to anything that puts up the remotest of a fight to play, which is kind of a lot of old games. It seems sometimes
of Super Nintendo games,
is definitely a barrier. But there is gold to mine, I'm sure.
Yeah. Plus, they got that nice rewind thing. I totally forget that that's even an option because I think the last retro game I attempted that Outcast, I just played it on some other emulator where I didn't have rewind set up. And man, that would have come in handy. But I was like in the situation where I was fighting a boss in Breath of Fire, or I was about to fight a boss, and the boss had already started sort of its like pre-fight monologue where he's just like, "Oh, why did you come here?" And I'm gonna murder you and all that stuff. And I thought, oh man, I don't know if I'm ready for this boss, but it's too late now because he's already doing the monologue. And then I remembered I had the rewind thing, so I just zipped back like 30 seconds made a save state and then got back to it. And it was fine. But man, it's just such a nice feature to have, especially when you're going through these retro games.
Excellent. What else did you dip into on there?
Nothing really else on the online thing. I was like, maybe I'll spend a couple hours with Breath of Fire 2 just to see how that compares. I remember that one also being quite a shock because, like, stylistically, it's very different from Breath of Fire 1. The soundtrack sounds like it's very like it's a lot of electric guitars. It sounds kind of like it's from a Mega Man game, even though it's like still dragons and fantasy characters fighting each other, which is kind of weird. But that was like one of the first instances of a game having kind of like side content or like side quests that I can remember, because that had it was like this weird town building, not quite mini game, but as you went through the campaign, you could recruit different people that you met and like send them back to this town that you were building. And depending who you sent back, like you could send like a merchant who would build an item shop. And it's been a while since I played this, so I forget exactly who you could send back. But there was a whole variety of professions that you could specialize in, and it was just so unheard of at the time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Who invented the side quest?
That's a good question. Like, what was the first side quest?
Yeah.
Was it to kill 3 rabbits? That's the next follow-up question.
Oh, I hope not. That's just sad if it is.
Well, I don't know. Like, pick your like 3 ladybugs, 3 snakes, weasels. Yeah. I don't know. Gather 3 bundles of wildflowers. But anyway,
400 feathers.
Yeah, just come back to me with 4,000 feathers. We'll get 3 experience points from it. It was also one of the first games that I played that I remember really noticing that the like translation was not very good. It had so many typos and just really questionable. Like, I don't think they like finished translating the sentence, or like it was done by somebody who didn't speak English, or just it made for a very surreal experience throughout the whole game. And at that point, like, JRPG localization wasn't great, but this one was just especially noticeably awry. So I'm kind of just curious to see. Like, don't expect that to hold up very well 20, 30 years later, but just trying to remember how kind of janky that game was. But anyway, I'm just kind of dabbling in stuff. I think probably this week I'll just dive right into Xenoblade, and who knows? Maybe I'll get through put a decent 80 hours in this week.
That would be impressive.
Yeah, no, probably not going to happen, but we'll see.
And Persona 3 is over in the corner going, what the hell?
Yeah, well,
I thought we had something.
I feel like Persona 3 will always be there. Like, it'll literally always be there because I'll never finish it. But yeah, this way I can take breaks. I can play a little Xenoblade, get tired of that, play a little Persona, check my planner to see which of my social links are available that week.
Yeah. Did you also play the demo for Sea of Stars?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Nice.
That was just another thing that I only spent an hour or 2 on, but that was fine because it's only an hour or 2 long.
Yeah. I actually played the game Sea of Stars.
You played the whole thing? Played 80 hours of Sea of Stars.
I played the game versus the demo.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, I started the demo, and I was like, oh, I really like this. It's cool.
Oh.
Now I'm going to stop playing the demo and just go play the main game.
Okay.
Because the demo is not like the beginning of the game. It's not a thing
I was
where
going to say, it feels like it's several hours into the full game.
Yeah. And as opposed to sort of a lot of demos, they just kind of give you the first 45 minutes of the game or something, and your progress carries over or whatever. That is not the proposition with Sea of Stars. It's a weird little kind of like vertical slice, like DJ said, of something that happens a little further into the game.
Is the very beginning of the demo, is that from the start of the game, or is that also later on? Because it felt like that could have potentially been the very start, but then it definitely jumps ahead.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Weird.
It's been a couple weeks since I played the demo. But no, I was surprised the demo goes back in time quite a bit.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, not the demo. The actual game starts quite a bit in the past.
Like compared to the demo?
Yeah.
Got it.
If I remember correctly, yeah. So you have the main game kind of starts in the present. There's a flashback. It takes up quite a while. And then you kind of flash back to current. And there's a training montage, which is exactly what you want in a video game. Yeah. A lot of time goes by. So yeah, the demo doesn't really do that. The demo just kind of jumps you in, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it felt like it could have been the start of the game, because it's just, you start with 3 friends and like, oh, okay, I'm joining them in the middle of this adventure or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so weird because like that sequence maybe lasts for 5 minutes and then it jumps ahead. So I was like, okay, so what was so special about that specific sequence? Why didn't they just jump ahead immediately?
Yeah. The actual game, you only start with 2 friends.
Okay.
Yeah. You get a 3rd friend later. It's we're probably not really selling this game. So there are some differences between the demo and the main game. The main game is part of the Xbox Game Pass. So I was playing the demo on Switch, and I'm like, I just play the game. I can play the game as easily as I'm playing the demo. So so I did that instead of completing the demo. But yeah. It's not a thing that was really on my radar. This is from the developers that did The Messenger a couple of years ago, which is not a game I played, but looks cool. But I got a ton of press over the last couple of years for being just sort of generally beautiful. I guess sort of looking a lot like kind of a Chrono Trigger era RPG. It was a Kickstarter that was quite successful, made a ton of money. Over $1 million.
Wow.
Which I guess is not a thing that happens very often on Kickstarter anymore. You're kind of outside of the bubble of the giant Kickstarter video game phenomena when that site first launched.
Yeah, you got the Yasunori Mitsuda boost, probably.
That is the music composer, right? That they're working with on the...
Yeah, he's one of the... or I don't know if there's more than one, but he contributed some tracks to this.
Cool. The music is noteworthy. It is hard to ignore. There's a lot of variety. It's really good. It's funny. I was playing this and there was a very serious moment of like characters talking that had sort of an ominous kind of music playing in the background. And then it quickly turned over to a battle and it turned into like disco dance music. It was like, yeah, it certainly had a retro flair, but it was, unmistakably like a disco track. It was very dancey. Like, oh, there's definitely a lot of variety going on in the music here. But yeah, I guess the hook here is that it looks kind of like a retro RPG, but has some kind of modern conveniences to it. It's
trying real hard to be Chrono Trigger.
It's very beautiful, very kind of character heavy, very story heavy. In fact, the main game itself, you get a lot of sort of like build up and character exposition very early on. They're just kind of packing this thing full of like, backstory and interesting characters and, a character who maybe has some secrets and there's something you're not quite, hearing about your destiny. And you get these 2 friends who were born during some interesting kind of lunar thing and are destined to become warriors, and you choose the path of the sun or the path of the moon, and on and on and on. So there's a lot of like kind of fantasy world building that goes into the very early hours of this thing. But once it finally kind of takes the shackles off you and let you just sort of go forth and play, it's a very playable, very kind of easily consumable turn-based RPG. That doesn't really do anything terribly surprising with that mechanic. I keep waiting for it to sort of blow me away with something kind of interesting in terms of battle. I really like the things that it does do early on, where it gives you little indicators pretty early about what enemies are kind of weak to, and how you use sort of the fire power, the daytime sun power of one of your characters versus the nighttime moon power of the other. You get a third friend eventually, who's a bit of a brawler to kind of round out your party. There's a magic element to it and stuff like that too, but it really is just kind of a turn-based RPG in the same way that, Dragon Quest and a number of other video games are.
Yeah. I have to say I found it very underwhelming. I do like that it does have some really cool ideas. I like the battle system that uses sort of timed hits. It brought that over from Super Mario RPG.
Yeah.
Which I think it does pretty well. Like even the special moves feel very inspired by Super Mario RPG. Like you have like your sort of boomerang move that bounces between enemies that you can just keep chaining over and over again.
As long as you hit the button at exactly the right time,
yeah. Yeah, so that's always fun. I like to see that in a game just to keep it a little more engaging.
Yeah.
I also really like that it's very generous, or it sort of encourages you to use the skills because it's you regenerate your magic points naturally just by doing normal attacks, which I think is very smart. But other than that, yeah, it's sort of I don't know. I don't want to say generic because it's definitely not just like an old school sort of left side of the screen, right side of the screen Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, but
it wasn't like, I don't know. I didn't think it was anything revolutionary, and that's fine. I mean, it was like you said, it was very playable.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think I want it to maybe be a little more like revolutionary, but I maybe that's not the game they're trying to be. I've never played Chrono Trigger, so I don't have that point of reference. But the things that the game kind of does are certainly things that it has lifted, like DJ said, from other video games that kind of did it first. I don't know how many kind of unique ideas there are in video gaming anymore at this point, but as soon as I kind of got into the rhythm of the button presses to the timed attack that do a little extra damage if you can hit the button at exactly the right time, I'm like, oh, it's just like every Paper Mario game.
Yeah.
And to your point, I really like the idea of having your magic points, your MP, kind of constantly topping off by doing standard brawler attacks. And one of the characters early in the game makes a point of saying to you to not use your magic is a waste. Because every time you're just beating somebody up, you're earning MP that you're not seeing, obviously. So that's cool too, but again, doesn't feel terribly revolutionary. It's quite pretty. The music is great. The characters are pretty endearing. There is a trio of friends that have a lot of kind of interesting kind of banter and backstory. But it is not kind of the revolutionary video game thing that I maybe got the sense that this was going to be. And I'm not sure if maybe this is a scenario where kind of the hype for this and that kind of wildly successful Kickstarter and everybody kind of waiting with bated breath over the release of this thing has maybe done it a bit of a disservice. That if this had kind of quietly come out and sort of been discovered collectively by people on the internet rather than being so hotly anticipated, maybe that would be a little more beneficial to it.
I'll tell you something I did really like, though, is the environment design and sort of the way you traverse the different areas, because it's like it's 2D basically. You can't move the camera or anything, but every area has like height to it. So there are a lot of situations where you can like climb up ladders or go upstairs, which is pretty standard stuff. But if you come to a ledge or like a waist-high wall, you can like mantle onto it. And you just end up doing a lot more sort of climbing around the environment than you do in like any other JRPG, I guess. Which I thought was very interesting, and it led to a lot of situations where I was either like going out of my way to explore and look for secrets, and I also think it was used, was put to pretty good use in the one dungeon that you do in the demo. Which I don't know how far you got in the demo. Did you get to sort of the crystal cave or whatever it was? It was like the alchemist laboratory.
Yeah, I really like that dungeon. I thought it was a lot of fun. There's definitely some kind of puzzle solving to it, but it also feels kind of a little linear. It's not something you really scratch your head over, but it's satisfying when you kind of put all the pieces together.
Yeah. I assume that was, I mean, I don't know how far into the full game that takes place. It felt sort of fairly early on still, even though it's not clearly the very beginning. But I was very curious to see what they end up doing with the traversal system that they have, because that is probably the most unique thing that they have going for them. I just feel like, oh, what could they possibly use this for?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting observation, is it does sort of address kind of the invisible wall that a lot of video games kind of put up. And that, if you have like a waist-high wall, that's usually a deal breaker for a character in some video games, particularly in RPGs, top-down RPGs.
They're like, oh no, there's a sprout in the middle of the road that, what are we going to do? You just can't go over it.
And in Sea of Stars, in a lot of cases, you kind of can. And it does give you an opportunity to kind of tuck in sometimes behind the environment and look for little hidden secrets and things like that. I found a couple of little chests with fun things in them, and there's no fall damage either, so sometimes you can sort of jump off the side of a mountain to land on a projection below it, and there's a little secret entrance to a cave there with something interesting inside. So it almost sort of feels a little bit like they're taking a lesson from like a Metroidvania, and that you can kind of see things in the perimeters of where the story takes you, that are little outcroppings, or the corner of a treasure chest somewhere on the side of a screen, and you're just like, how do I get to that? And there is usually some sort of combination of exploration and jumping over a thing and jumping off something else and going through a doorway to come out on another screen that kind of gets you there. And the few times that I have noticed a few of those in on the map, it's been pretty satisfying to try to suss out, how do I get there?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Like when you're going through that seaside town in the demo, and you just notice a treasure chest out of the corner of your eye, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can probably get to wherever that is. And you just spend a few minutes trying to do that. And it's never like, oh, you found Excalibur. It was just in a chest in this town. It's like, oh, you found like 30 gold pieces. But it's just like a fun little thing that you do as you're making your way to the main quest.
The best armor I've found so far in the main game has been in one of those secret chests. So,
oh, really? Okay, yeah. Just book through soon then.
So the value goes up a little bit, maybe sometimes later. But yeah, it's kind of scratching the itch for a very playable, kind of easily consumable, endearing, sort of wholesome kind of RPG. There's a place for this, I think. It certainly looks and sounds and plays very well. It's just I don't know. I keep waiting for it to like rock my socks, and it just has not been that game.
How far are you into it?
Maybe I put 5 hours, I think, or so into it last week.
Oh wow! Okay,
which is a pretty good chunk of gaming for me.
Yeah.
On the Xbox, nonetheless. So it's not like I can like travel with it or anything. So it's just me sitting in front of the television playing it.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think I will continue to play it. I like that it does some kind of interesting stuff with kind of approachability or accessibility, for lack of a better word. There's relics that you can find and equip throughout the play of the game. And if you add them to one of your characters, it does give you little quality of life things that either make the game harder or make the game easier. There's a relic I found that allows your like magician type character to top off the health of everybody in the game penalty free after every encounter.
What?
So if you
does it cost like magic points or anything?
Nope, nothing.
Oh, okay. So that's just like the easy mode amulet.
In a lot of ways, yeah. So,
okay. I saw there's the one in the demo, which is like, it might have been the same thing you're talking about, but it would like restore people's health to some degree after every battle. It was like the story mode. It had like story in the name.
Oh, yes. I think we're talking about the same thing.
So it was like very clear why that was there.
I didn't realize that was in nice. I didn't realize that was in the demo. That's funny. I've recently found a relic that allows one of the characters to see the hit points of all the enemies. So it just adds a little display up at the top right-hand corner to let you know how close you are to vanquishing a certain foe, which is, again, kind of fun, but feels a little old school. I like that. But
like the health gauge feels old school?
Yes, I think so. Would you disagree?
What is the new version? Like not having one?
Not knowing, yeah, not having a health bar or having not having a life counter up in the corner of the character that tells you how close they are to dying.
Oh, I think it's the other way around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, I was going to say, like, one of the things that I had forgotten about Breath of Fire is that you just get enemy health bars as you're fighting enemies out in the field, which I thought was very unusual at the time. At least in my memory of it, because, like, I feel like, especially in those old Dragon Quest games, part of the like strategy in the battles is sort of keeping a mental sort of estimate of how much health enemies have left, so you know how to distribute your like skills and spells and everything.
Right.
And it wasn't until they started just putting in like scan spells where you can look up their HP or whatever that that information started to become a little more like available.
Yeah,
So
I think that
I always felt like I felt like having health bars feels more modern to me than not having them.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I think of like Persona games and stuff like that. Well, like you said, there's a scan feature. There's usually somebody on your team in Persona who you can. It's an action. It counts as an action for you to like see what their weakness is and how much health they have left and stuff like that. But there still is something built into the game that kind of gives you like, oh well, they've only got 10% of their health left.
Mm-hmm. Don't they just show you the health in Persona, or at least in Persona 3?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought
too many games in my brain.
Persona, too many Personas. I think like the first time you encounter an enemy in Persona 3, you have to scan it to get like the weaknesses and everything. But then you just have that, or it's like a free move you can do.
Oh.
But I think the health is just always there. Yeah, I'm just like, oh man, I just gotta hit that guy. If I just hit him a little bit harder, we wouldn't have to deal with him anymore.
Yeah. Well, and then in Sea of Stars, there is a mechanic for that, because if you can get the timed button presses exactly right, occasionally, almost always you do more damage, but occasionally you earn a second kind of follow-up attack as well.
Yeah, that was cool.
So yeah, there's a rhythm to that. Again, one of those little relics that you can deploy, I think this is in the demo as well, is that if you're having trouble getting that button press right, you can turn on a little notifier that every time you hit the button at exactly the right time, a little starburst happens. So it gives you sort of like an on-screen kind of visual cue to like, hey, you got the timing right, good job. And I like feedback like that. I'm a sucker for that in like casino games and things like that. So I put that relic on immediately, and every time I hit one of those right and a little starburst goes off, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that one was good.
Yeah.
I just had a hard time sort of like figuring out what was a bonus attack and what was not starting out. So it was kind of a nice little like training wheels option.
Yeah. So yeah, Sea of Stars. I like it. I'm glad I'm playing it. I'm also kind of glad I didn't pay $60 for it, but I, as a sort of value proposition, it being included in Game Pass feels like a hell of a deal. I mean, it's a brand new game, hotly anticipated by much of the internet, it seems, and to have it just sort of be part of Game Pass on day and date is exciting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are playing it there.
Yeah. I also grabbed The Messenger. It was the week that the Sea of Stars came out. The Messenger was like $5 on the Switch eShop, and I was like, for $5, let's see what this is. See what the other thing is. I've not had a chance.
Isn't it basically Ninja Gaiden?
That's what it kind of looked like. Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's your favorite thing.
Yeah. Well, I played one of those when I was a child.
Oh, you did? Okay, never mind.
In my youth.
Yeah. Ninja Gaidens of my youth.
So
I was kind of interested in that because that looked. I like the art style and everything, and I heard it's very good. So I was considering like, I don't know if I'm into the Sea of Stars thing, but maybe I'll play The Messenger.
It was $5 on the eShop. You might want to check that out.
Yeah, it's fine.
So yeah, that is my middling sort of lukewarm experience with the first 5 hours of Sea of Stars.
I sounded a little more than lukewarm on it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't spend 5 hours with a video game that I wasn't enjoying. So,
right.
You can get by with a lot if you have like personality and good music, I think. And Sea of Stars has those things very much so. It's just you get sort of like wade into the mechanics of this thing, and in a lot of ways it does kind of feel like a starter RPG. That's fine. That's cool. I am playing with some of those relics engaged too. So maybe it would feel like a little bit more of a contest if I, wasn't automatically topping off my health after every encounter.
Oh, you can turn that one off. Come on.
I am an experienced RPG player. I don't need that.
Yeah. I felt like I didn't use that one in the demo, and it was fine. Although they also just give you a camp that's right there that you can go and restore your health whenever you want. So that certainly didn't hurt.
Yeah, maybe I should turn that off.
I don't know. Up to you. I mean, if you're just there for the story, that's also fine. I mean, that's how I played Final Fantasy 16, basically.
Cool.
Well, I am kind of surprised to hear that you're playing this one because I feel like it's not always your thing. I know you've had a difficult time getting into Chrono Trigger in the past.
Yeah. Yes. That was always Paul, our previous co-host. That was one of his favorite video games, if not his favorite video game of all time. And I think if I remember correctly, he did kind of an annual replay of that game as well.
Yeah.
And I always felt real bad that, like, man, I don't quite see the appeal. But that was a long time ago. I wonder if maybe I would have a new ability to appreciate a Chrono Trigger experience if I tried it out these days.
New appreciation for JRPGs now that you're a seasoned Dragon Quest veteran.
Yes.
Well, like I was saying, it feels very heavily inspired by Chrono Trigger. So if you finish this up and you're eager for more, maybe that's something you can look at, or maybe it's something for next year's Backlog-Attack. Who knows?
Yeah. Make a note of it.
Yeah. It's been years since I played Chrono Trigger. Maybe it's about time for me to get back in there. No, I have to play Xenoblade. What am I talking about?
You can't. Stop. Just you have your mission ahead of you.
As far as I know, Chrono Trigger is not on the Switch Online thing, so I'm safe.
Well, I mean, if tradition holds, you have been sort of playing along with me when I do go way far back into one of these retro games. So maybe we can sync up on Chrono Trigger one of these days.
Oh man, Chrono Trigger is a lot. It's much larger of a commitment than Dragon Quest
really?
1. Yeah, I mean it's still not incredibly long, but it's not like a Persona game, but it's more than 5 hours long.
Yeah, that's my limit. Screw it.
5 hours long. Well, it's gonna be hard pressed to find a lot of JRPGs in that window.
I've looked. All right. Anything else on your list, DJ?
For this week, who knows? What else did I play? I went back to Armored Core and New Super Mario Brothers since those were on my list, and probably not going to play any more Armored Core. Apologies. Although I really am curious about that new one, and I think Super Mario Brothers is fine, but with the new one coming out soon, I'm probably just going to pause on that, so I'm not burnt out on it by the time it comes out.
Very soon, like less than a month away, if I remember correctly, right?
Really? Okay, well, good plan then.
It's early October, if memory serves.
Yeah, coming up soon then.
Right around the corner.
Gotta get ready for Spooky Saturday coming back. Speaking of early October.
Yeah. Well, there we go. We need a plan for October. We should lock that down.
Yeah. Well, now you're talking.
And then it's Extra Life.
Just gotta do something for Extra Life.
Yeah. Gotta do a lot of somethings for Extra Life.
Get all the Chrono Trigger endings in 24 hours.
Get on it. Man, multiple endings? That's a lot.
That was, I don't think it's the first game with multiple endings, but I think that's where New Game Plus came from. It was the first game with New Game Plus.
Oh, really?
At least formally.
Well, that's interesting.
So that's the first time they actually called it New Game Plus, I'm pretty sure. See, now you're like, oh, maybe I should play Chrono Trigger.
Maybe I'm missing out. All right. Well, I guess we should wrap this thing up and go play some video games.
Yeah. I'm going to play my first 40 hours of Xenoblade.
If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to hang out with us on Discord and chat about video games and other fun stuff. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com. And we would encourage you to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere else you can get a podcast, and maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, that would be great. Really help us get the word out and bring in new listeners. So yeah, just tell your friends about the show. We really appreciate it. We want to give special thanks again to Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, you can go to fearofdark.bandcamp.com and listen to some more of his stuff there. Just maybe even buy an album or two.
Nice. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See you.